So Jason, mobile smart assets. The industry talks a lot about import and export of data. How does that relate to mobile smart assets, and how is that different?
Okay, so one of the things when we talk about the Digital Asset Management Bill, right, it's a lot about being able to exchange data and move data, because you can't really manage things if they're stuck in one spot, right? So when you talk about import and export, other systems talk about mobile smart assets, and that's differentiated from mobile devices, right? This is about being able to move the assets around, right? So to be valuable, an asset has to go places, right? It has to be printed, and it has to be on the web, and it has to be downloaded, and it has
Sent to vendors.
Right, exactly. Yep. And so the thing that's crazy about that is that when other systems talk about that, they have import, export, and mapping, and those are deadly, right? So when you're talking about mobile smart assets, that means that the asset has to be able to move, but you need to not have to convert that asset from one database to another. You don't need to map the fields. What you need to do is have a metadata standard and do strongly attached metadata, which we talked about. And then we need to have that strongly attached metadata needs to pass from database to database without being import, exported, or mapped. It has to be absorbed, and then it has to be made part of the rest of the database. So give an example. The phone numbers, right? 612-555-1212 would give you directory assistance for Minneapolis. Okay, New York would be 212-555-1212, right? So those are able to be used by everybody in a single phone book. But if we just had 7 numbers and we didn't have 10 numbers, we'd end up with 555-1212, and you'd have to say, oh, when you dial in Minneapolis, 555-1212 actually is Minneapolis, but then 555-1213 is New York. And so you'd have to remember that, okay? So that's where we are without namespaces. And so namespaces are just like prefixes on phone numbers, and that allows you to move that data back and forth, that metadata, back and forth without having to say, oh, in Minneapolis, if you want to dial information for New York, you got to dial 555-1213 and then tell everybody, and then as you move from city to city, you got to look up what it is. So that's where we were without namespaces and what MediaBeacon did.
You need something designed for a larger world.
Exactly. So in the old classic asset managers, they all did this import, export, and mapping of metadata. And when you do that, it's like doing that phone number, 555-1213. And that means that the database has to be changed, and humans have to be involved at every boundary. So when we do mobile smart assets, that smart data goes with. That smart data is mapped. That smart data is not import, exported, or mapped again. You have that data attached to it. So that's like the prefix for the phone numbers.
Got it.
Cool.
Thanks.